welcome to the Helix webinar series. Today's session is on live prompting. I recognise quite a few names, so I think you've come to previous sessions before. We're going to be covering today a deep dive on the Employee Navigator Agent, and myself and Kath will introduce himself shortly, my co-host. I'm delighted to have Naji, one of my education colleagues. He will introduce himself and get us started. So our plan today is to run through some agent training. We've got lots of demos that are going to be included, but just a reminder before I hand over to Kath to set the scene, there is the Q&A section of Zoom, which you'll find at the bottom of your screen. You will remain muted until we get towards the end, just purely because we've got a lot to cover. Naji will try to get some of the questions as he goes along, but we will have roughly around 15 minutes or so at the end where we'll go to Q&A. So without further ado, Kath, my co-host, I'm going to hand over to you to set the scene, maybe just talk a little bit about our last session, which was very closely linked to some of the tooling. I'm going to hand over, and in the background, I will be launching a poll very shortly so we can get a bit more information and see how we can help you on your journey with our agents. So, Kath, over to you.
Yeah. This is it number 5 in this series of live prompting, if I remember right?
Yes.
We started out and we looked at how you can use this Employee Navigator Agent and how you could generate documents and help people in the organization to automate things they are doing daily. And then we had another one which was about adding tools, and we had Rishi actually creating a tool that we connected to the agent that allow you to search on Google. So we call it the Ask Google Agent. And he uses the platform functionality to create a process to do that. Very effective. Today, I have asked Naji to join us because we were on the BMC Helix roadshow in Stockholm about a month ago, and he did a fantastic session. After lunch, he took about 1.5 hours of people's attention, and no one fell asleep, which you normally see people being very tired. Right, Naji? You didn't see anyone falling asleep.
No,
they were
not even
all
you,
the time.
Kath. No, you're all wide awake, asking your questions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I thought, why not spread that a little bit wider? So Naji will go through how the Employee Navigator Agent works and what it has inside itself, and the tools it's using out of the box. But I think the important thing here is that we are actually showing the agentic capabilities of our HelixGPT, but Employee Navigator is just one of the agents. After this, I hope you want to build your own agents, because these last 3 weeks, I think I've had multiple people coming back to me and say, I added a tool, and guess what? I didn't have to change Employee Navigator at all, the instructions. I just added a tool, and now I can interact with, for example, Kubernetes, which one of my friends did. Or another customer that tested said it's so quick to summarize the thing that people enter in one of the fields of a questionnaire and so on. So many ideas, and it is pretty easy to build amazing things. I think this training will help you get started. So I will not talk more. I think I'll hand it over to Naji, and we can have interactions along the way, you and I. But at the end, you will be able to ask questions. You can also type in the Q&A window, and I will try to answer while Naji is speaking. So great to have you, and let's move on.
Thanks, Kath. Good. Okay. So, yeah, I'm going to talk to you about Employee Navigator, really just as an example of an agent. And it's one that you are probably going to deploy fairly early on in your journey. So, yeah, first of all, let's just have a look at the environment. So I've got a little test environment here that I'm using. And how would an end user interact with this? Well, an end user would interact with Employee Navigator through usually digital workplace. I mean, ultimately, it can be embedded anywhere. It can be embedded in any web page. It could be embedded in digital workplace somewhere else. But this icon up here that you can see takes us to Employee Navigator. So that's one way to get to it. And also, if we go into the search, we get to it that way as well. If we search for something, I could do this. Put that in, and we can see that we're going into Employee Navigator that way, and then we can go back to that page. So generally, this is an agent with a set of tools which is appropriate for everyone in the organization, everyone who uses self-service, digital workplace, as we call it. And that's configurable. There are some admin settings that we can go to here, which control which agent we use, which skill we use. You can see here that we can control which specific skill we're using. We can use an out-of-the-box one. You could create your own. There's another setting down here on the left under chat, and you can see which one we are pointing to, how we kind of get to them. So we can see, which ones we're consuming, which ones we're using. So that's about how to get to Employee Navigator. But what I wanted to show you was a little bit about what the actual tools are doing.
Naji, one question then. The side panel versus in the search bar versus on other pages, is it the same Employee Navigator, or is it different?
It can be. You can actually point to different skills potentially from there, or you could unify it to point to the same. Generally speaking, most people would have it pointing to the same skill. So you simply define which skill you are pointing to. So in the search in here, you can point it to a specific skill. And that from a drop down, we just pick the skill that we want to point it to. So those are entry points, but they're not necessarily pointing at any one particular skill. They're just the standard places where we would typically, normally launch Employee Navigator from.
Great.
But ultimately, we can get to it. We can embed it in a custom innovation studio page. We can embed it in a custom studio page. Getting to the skill is the important thing. And actually, I just mentioned the word skill there, so we need to describe what that all is as well. So from the end user point of view, we'll have a look at that first, and then we'll see it from the administrator's point of view to see how that pans out. So one of the tools that it's got, and we're going to experience it first as a user, is a tool called DWP Profile Search. And that's exactly what it is. It searches profile information for users and indeed locations that are stored within digital workplace. This is not directly going to look at what's in, for example, the people data in foundation data, although that is synced with digital workplace. This is a digital workplace profile search. So let me just run a little example of that for you so you can see how that works. So I've opened up the tool, and I've gone into, or the agent rather, and I've gone in and asked a question. Okay, so hi, well, I've made a statement rather than a question, and I get a response from the AI. Okay, and we'll see exactly how these responses are generated and so on in a few moments. And now I'm putting in my first question, which is about the phone number for one of my colleagues. Okay, so I'm not stalking her or anything. This is colleague, and I'm trying to find out like phone number information from that person. Okay, and this is going to go and use a tool to look for information in digital workplace to see if it can answer that as a question. So let me rerun. I'll ask a question, push the question forward, and I get an answer. Okay, so I can see the phone number coming back to me there, plus the email address of the information that I'm getting. So I'll just run that again, ask a question, get an answer. Okay. We'll carry on the conversation a little bit with the AI because it's conversational, kind of that's the whole point, right? So I can ask a follow-up question if I want to. I'm going to ask a question here I'm going to type it in a kind of very human way. I've misspelt company. It happens. And I'm also not really saying whose company I want. It's figured out that in the context of what I'm talking about, because I'm still in the same topic, that I wanted Prisha's company. If I go to a new topic and ask the same question, then it's not quite clear what conversation I want here. Am I talking about my company or someone else's? So it's asking me to clarify what I mean by that.
And you're like me, I can see you're mistyping things, and it still understands what you're doing, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's a linguistic. It's got a better language skills than I've got, so it's able to understand meaning and intent in any language that the model supports, including misspelt English. And the important thing we saw there was that, first of all, it was able to retrieve profile information. Secondly, it was able to understand the context. So when I went further into the conversation, it was able to understand that I wanted to ask about Prisha's company, not just any company, until I did a new conversation, a new topic, which is that little icon, the square icon with the pencil in. And then it realized that, oh, I'm in a new conversation here. So when I'm saying what company, it needs that to be disambiguated. Okay, right. That's just an example. Let's have a look behind the scenes and see how this is controlled, viewed by the administrators. So that was an end user's experience. They go in, they ask a question that's related to the business. They're trying to track the phone number of a colleague, and they get the information. So they're satisfied. That's all good. So this is what we do as an administrator to get to it. We go to Innovation Studio, which is where this application lives. So we've gone into here, and there's a shortcut that we can take, which takes us to the Agent Studio. Okay. And in there, I can have a look at the skills. So a skill, consider a skill to be a container, which points to an agent. A skill points to a single agent. And then what we're looking at in here is the instruction that we've given the agent. Okay, these are the instructions that you can see. And on the left, you can see the 5 tools. So out the box, Employee Navigator has got 5 tools which this agent can potentially use to answer a question or deal with an intent from a user. And that's the nature of an agent. An agent uses one or more tools independently to figure out how to satisfy the request that the human has made. Okay, and then it will decide which one is most appropriate. So the instructions are out the box. You'll notice they are grayed out, therefore they can't be edited. Not in the out the box version. We can take a copy. You can certainly do that. And in fact, when you saw me demonstrating earlier which skill to use, I could quite happily use a custom skill. I don't have to use the built-in Employee Navigator skill. It could be one that's incredibly similar with very similar instructions, or you could have tweaked these instructions. Okay, so these are the instructions that you've got in there. So the order of these tools is not significant. No, there's no significance to the order of these tools. They're not being given preferential treatment. In the instructions, however, I could very well order these tools. And in fact, they are. If we look deeper in the instructions, so let me kind of redo this as a kind of live demo, right? So just to completely reproduce it, and, in case you missed it the first time, there's a shortcut within here. So we can go to Innovation Studio, and well, I mean, I've ultimately made myself a shortcut, but it's just a URL, isn't it? So it'd be worth doing that. The skills are grouped by application. So this is one of the skills to do with digital workplace. And if I look at the appropriate skill, so you saw that in digital workplace, I was indicating which skill to use. That's the only thing I'm telling the web page, which skill to use. The skill uses a certain model, and the skill uses one agent, at least one initial agent. Okay. And the agent itself has got these instructions. So these are the instructions on how to use the tools. Okay. And we've got information in there about how it should use tools, okay, and what it should actually look for. So if we were to search for tool in there, you'll see it's mentioned a lot. You must strictly use only the tools available to generate your answers. You're not allowed to use your knowledge. This rule is explicit. So you can see that we're being very clear about how the tools are used. This is how we guide the agent to its toolkit, its set of tools. And it's got 5 of them in here. Okay. Let's take a look further. Let's see what else happens when we run in the Employee Navigator. So that's where I get to the out-the-box agent with its tools. Okay. So there's a testing facility. So when you know what skill you're using, and we do because we went to Digital Workplace, we can told it which skill to use. We've just gone and looked at that skill. We've seen the instructions and we've seen the 5 tools that are within it. There's a way that you as an administrator can find out a lot more about what's going on behind the scenes, which is the intent of this webcast, is a deep dive into an example agent with an example set of tools. Okay. So you'll find from version 25.3 that there is an option in here to go to do some testing. And this is very revealing, and I highly encourage you to do this. So I'm going to ask exactly the same question that I did in the UI that the end users were using, which is about Preacher's contact info. Same question, which it runs and retrieves me the information. Now, what's cool about this, I can actually look at the large language model. I can have a look here at what was put into it. So the input. The input is the whole set of instructions, the entire set of instructions that was given, that we saw. Yeah, which are out of the box from us, plus, of course, what the human said. It says 1 human, what's Preacher's. And in these keyword arguments, KW args as keyword arguments, what I'm looking for here is that it's understood which tool to use. That's all I'm looking for here. Which tool did it decide to use as an agent? Is it intelligent enough to figure out that the right tool for the job is this? And it did figure it out. So there's 2 calls, call 0 and call 1. We're IT, aren't we? So we start with 0. We start counting at 0. So in call 1, we can then see the output. And there you can see the information that was retrieved. Okay. Obviously in a fairly raw format, which is then reformatted in the UI when it's presented to the end user. So what we've seen there is Digital Workplace has a place where we can go and consume a skill. So if I click on this, I'm directed to a skill, which is controlled by this setting here, which tells Digital Workplace which skill I would want to use. I can configure any skill I like to do that. I can configure, as I've done here, the Digital Workplace Employee Navigator Agent. Yeah, so that's the skill that it's going into to do that. And when we ask it these questions, what we're doing is actually running through that test that I just did. And as an administrator, it's very fascinating to have a look and see how did it take the information? How did it decide? How did the agent decide to respond to what the human said? Okay, what the input was that came from us there. Okay, so that's one of the tools. There are 5, so let's look at the other ones. There's another one called a knowledge tool. Now this one's a bit different because instead of directly looking at information in Digital Workplace, this is actually going to go and have a look at a thing called the vector DB. And the vector DB is a place where we've uploaded or ingested knowledge articles. They could be classic RKM knowledge articles, KAs. They could be ComAround. They could be ones which are in PDF format. There's a multiple formats. We can even have them imported, let's say, from SharePoint. We load them or ingest them into a vector DB, which is a format that the LLM can really understand, where instead of storing data in a table format, we store it in a format which is very easily understood by the LLM, and it can invoke and infer lots of relationships between the data. So it's a specific format. And then we're getting our answers from that. So here, let's take an example. Okay. So in here, what's happening is we're going to ask about VPN on an iPhone. Notice we're doing it in a testing. We're an administrator here. We want to see what happens behind the scenes. And it gives us how to configure VPN on your iPhone. That's coming from knowledge articles. How do I know? Let's go and have a look. Have a look in here. We can see the instructions it received. Those are the instructions that the agent has. We can see what tool is being used. I'm confident here that it has used a knowledge tool. Good job. The agent has chosen the correct tool. That's its prime directive. And then we can also see the amount of tokens it's used up. Tokens get burned up with all of these calls. So it's interesting to see how they're being consumed. And then we can see the scoring that it's getting for various articles which it's retrieving. So it's got a grader where it's grading the articles that it's finding, the information that it's finding in the vector DB that you've put your articles into, you've put your knowledge base into, for it to come up with a summary and a set of articles which would be useful for the end user. Okay, so all this is transparent. What I'm showing you here in doing the testing is absolutely what you should do as people that configure and administer the system, so that you're confident about where the answers are coming from, you know why they're coming in a certain way. And we can see here the output. This is basically the answer. This is how you can do VPN on an iPhone. Okay, and we can see the information that's coming out there. This is what it looks like, by the way, through Digital Workplace. Same question, same answer. And we're asking always to give information about where it got it from. So in this case, I can go straight to the knowledge article, which is the source of the information. So that's the second of 5 tools tested out there. We've proven that the agent is capable of working out which tool to use in which situation, and the tool works. You see what it retrieves. This is all out the box. The skill is out the box. It contains an out the box agent. So skill to agent. One agent has multiple tools. Okay, that's what we're doing in terms of dissecting this information. Let's keep going, because there's 5 tools. We've only seen 2 so far. So let's bring the third one along. There's a tool called DWP Service Health. Let's see how that gets used.
Naji, do you think we should elaborate a little bit more on the vector database and how you get things in
Sure.
there?
Yeah. Yes.
So vector databases doesn't store the text essentially. The vector is actually the meaning of the text. So when you run a job that is ingesting the knowledge articles or the documents from SharePoint, wherever they come, you are showing that now, I think.
I am. Yep.
Yeah, you're pointing to one of these data sources. And the thing is, when you run this job, it will take the text in the knowledge article or in the document. It will turn it into a number, and that number is a vector of about 700 dimensions or something, which represent the meaning in a kind of number format. So that is used to find things, because when you ask a question, we're doing the same thing. The question is turned into a vector. So then you have a number in the database, you have a number from the question, and then you can compare them. And there is an algorithm that is measuring how close they are to each other. You can think of it. So that is how similar the question is to the answer, and that is how the vector database works, and that is used to send back to the LLM so it can present an answer for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. And that the important thing there is that we're not searching the live knowledge articles. We are searching the version of the data which has been ingested into the vector DB according to the schedule that I was showing you, which could be daily or weekly or whatever, or on demand. and therefore you're only getting information that has been ingested. So a common question is, what if I just create a brand new article? Well, until it's been ingested into the vector DB, actually it's not considered as suitable data to answer the question. Yeah.
And as another thing is, if you don't ingest everything, you can actually decide which knowledge articles you actually ingest and want to present through the chat, and others you can avoid getting there. So that's quite important.
You could also, I was choosing which source of data to ingest. So just to recap on that, where I'd gone here was in the settings, the information sources, where we can make a large number of information sources. For example, this one. Yep. So this is Helix Knowledge Management using a connection, and where we can say the schedule. Now, here I'm not choosing which articles to ingest particularly, but yes, it is possible to be far more selective and just choose which articles or which set of data you want to ingest. Yeah.
Nice. Good. Any questions on that? You can paste it in the window.
Yeah, that's it. So there was a question in the vector DB. Is it yeah, I mean, I think the answer is here. So we data is hosted within our data centers. Okay.
Correct. And also there is a small model that is turning the text into the vectors. That one is also running in our data center. So or if you're on-prem, you host it in your own data center. So it's not going outside the company.
Yes, on-prem, it would be on-prem. On cloud, it would be on cloud. Yep. And Pablo, we're running this in 25.3. What you're seeing today is the version that we're doing is 25.3. Okay. Shall we move on? Because we've not seen all of the tools. We've seen many of them, but not all of them. So this one. And what the key thing I'm trying to get across to you is that the agent has a set of tools, one or more. And what I'm trying to see is, does it use the right tool? That's always my first concern. Is my agent sufficiently instructed or prompted with prompt instruction that you give it initially to understand that it should use this tool in this situation? If it's not using the right tool, obviously we're not going to get the right response. So let's look at a different example then. So let's look at another scenario where the person is going to put in some kind of question. So I'll run the PT. And here they go again to the same place, Employee Navigator, assuming that's the skill it's pointing to, and it is in this case. So they're going to ask a question, is the VPN North America up? Okay, so we get a response. And it says, yes, it is. It's currently available, and we can actually look at it and put a post onto it. And what this information is these are the service availability information that we have in Digital Workplace, that we've had for many, many, many years in Digital Workplace. I could ask for all service health. Give me a summary of services and their health. And it will run through them, and it will give me the information about which services are up, what their status is, information like that. Most services are up and running, but please note that there's a couple which are experiencing performance issues, and there's one that's disrupted. So this is what this particular tool has done. It's still the same agent, by the way. We have at no point left the agent. We're still using the same agent as we did before. Okay. So
and this one and the people one are not really using the vector database. They are using a direct SQL query against the database and retrieve that information, and that is used to form the message.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Yeah. So just to be super clear about this, that this information is coming from the configuration information in here. It's effectively the same thing that you would see if you were to go into here and you were to look at service health. It's exactly this information, and it's retrieving it in real time. Yeah, it's not coming from the vector DB at all. The knowledge tool was the only one I'm showing you which is getting data from the vector DB. The others are getting it in real time from information about people that you saw from the profile, and in this case, about service health.
And the reason being that if you have a vector database, you can search based on your intent and your meaning. You know, a traditional search is giving you all the documents that contain the word. But in the case of an agent, we don't really want the long list. We want an answer. So that's why we're using the vector database for it.
Absolutely, yeah. This kind of information can very easily be stored and understood in a normal table format, right? Because it's a very finite set of services with certain attributes, like are they up or whatever. So it makes a lot more sense in this case to simply go straight to the data. It's not a linguistic search, doesn't have that sophistication at all. It's a fairly straightforward table search, but it's super useful to the end user, right? Because they are able to then just conversationally talk to the LLM about services that may or may not be up and running. Okay. And again, if we wanted to test it, the way we would test this, and this is all 25.3. Everything I'm showing you in here is on that version. You can see the version is 25.3 throughout. So if I wanted to test that, so again, I go into my skills, I find the correct skill, which is Employee Navigator. There's a few versions of it, but this is the one I believe that I want. It is. I can see what agent it's using. It's using that agent. That's good. And I can go in to do the test option. And in here, I can say, is US VPN up? Words to that effect. And it comes back and says yes. And this is great because I can now see how it worked that out. So this logging is excellent, and it's actually even better in newer version as well. So it's just getting better and better. Where we can see, this is the instruction. So this is the original instruction that we got. Okay. And then you can see this is the bit that the human, me, said. All right. And we can see here the tool call. Yeah. And we can see what's going on. And we can see it's using get service health. All right. And it's in fact saying here are the possible arguments that you can get. So we know we're using the right tool for the job. That's worked that out correctly. Last couple of tools to look at. We'll bunch them together. Event tool, DWP event tool. What that's looking for are digital workplace events. That means service requests, but there's much else that's actually in digital workplace. You may not use them necessarily, but we can do appointments. We can have to-do issues that are going on in there, and something you may well use, approval. Yeah. Okay. So that's that set of tools. Or let me just go back one moment onto this tool, which was getting the service health. The service health information is the service health that we see in digital workplace, this information. This information can indeed come from a BHOM integration. We do have integrations that can populate and keep this up to date. That's not the business of the tool. The tool retrieves its data from this location, however it's got in there, whether it's been edited manually, whether it's been pumped in from an integration. That's of no concern whatsoever to the agent tool. Yeah, the one that we were looking at a moment before. It is actually simply retrieving information from there. Okay, just to clarify as a question, it just came in.
And collectively, we call these tools chat with knowledge versus chat with DWP. So that's what we kind of group them as. Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, you can categorize them in that way. And by the way, this search and this shortcut here can point to different skills, or they can point to the same one, and they don't have to be the out-of-the-box Employee Navigator skill. They do not have to be. That's entirely up to you as an administrator. Okay, so what I'm showing you here is this is typically where we would put an entry point into Employee Navigator. It's the classic entry point to Employee Navigator, but it can in fact point to any skill you like. We'll come back to that in a moment. Okay, but let's deal with the last couple of tools. in the array of tools. So event tool is looking for tickets that the end user can see. So we're talking about service requests, the approvals are awaiting them, things like appointments if you use them, things like that. And then DWP catalog service search is searching the catalog for suitable services that have been created within the catalog with those questions. Okay. Right, let's take a look and see how that works. So again, notice I'm going to here. I could have gone into the other location to search, and I'm doing a new conversation. So I'm using whichever skill the administrator has pointed that to, which in this case is Employee Navigator. Okay. So in this case, what I'm going to ask about is what requests do I have open? And that's clearly going to look at my requests in Digital Workplace. And I can see the requests I have open, the ones waiting approval. I can click on them and I can view my service requests. So I can have a conversation about the events which are sitting there within Digital Workplace. So instead of doing it all graphically, I can do it through here. We haven't mentioned it, but we could also have done this through a Teams channel. Yeah, we could have just had this as a sort of chat through Teams. We didn't have to go to this UI to launch it. I'm just launching it from this UI because it's the most sort of standard one to do it from. The next thing I'm asking for is, can I make a new request? So I don't want my existing requests, but new request. And in this version, which is specifically 25.3, what the system is doing is returning me a list of suitable services within the catalog. And then I'm answering the questions in the usual way. And then I'm going to submit that. You'll see me doing that in a minute. I'm answering the various questions and I'm submitting the request. And then I will get a ticket created, a service request created. And I can continue to chat about that, by the way. It's kept all my chat history. And I can continue to talk about this particular request. So in this version, it's not conversationally taking me into the catalog item, nor did I have to publish anything into the agent. It is quite simply giving me a list of suitable services that I might want to request, and then showing me the tickets that it's actually creating behind the scenes. Okay, so that's how it's handling in 25.3 version of Employee Navigator. That is how we get to the service request catalog. Okay. All right. So what if you've understood those 5 tools? You've done all the testing that I showed you I was testing. How does the tool work? What information does it retrieve? Does it work properly? You've satisfied yourself that that's the case, and you've understood these 5 key tools that the agent Employee Navigator has got out of the box. What if you want it to do something else? And I've had all sorts of people coming up with all sorts of things that they'd like it to do. Yep. Could I find, travel times? Can I get information out of a expenses system? Okay. Could we do all of those sort of things? Yeah, if you can imagine a tool, then you can do it. So how do you create these new tools? You might want to have a look in communities where people such as Hugh here have been creating blogs showing you exactly how you do create your own tools to do very specific things. For example, he's written a whole bunch here about maybe how to retrieve information from the CMDB, right? So none of the tools I showed you just now actually retrieved information directly from the CMDB. They retrieved information about services and stuff like that, but not directly from the CMDB. So here he's written a bunch to do with change requests and CMDB, and you'll find a lot more on our communities pages. And I recommend that you, for example, you certainly follow Hugh, and certainly you take a look at his work. He's doing some great work on some example ones. If I just show you here an example of how that would work. So if I take a look into here, we've got a custom skill that we can take a look at. Yeah. So this is a custom skill. I could easily point to this custom skill. It's just a skill like any other. It's got a name and it can be pointed to from anywhere you like. And then within there, we can start to ask it a question. So a question that you haven't asked before. Now, you may not want this to be an Employee Navigator because you may not want your end users to be directly interacting with change requests. Maybe you do for some. And this is now bringing us lots of information about CIs associated to the change. So it's doing stuff which is quite different to what we had before. Okay. I'll put Hugh's work up again in a little moment. And what we can see in here is it's using a certain set of tools. Okay, and we can see what tool it's using. Get all associated change CI. So this is using a specific tool, one that we haven't looked at before. It doesn't come out of the box with Employee Navigator at all. Okay. All right. Does not come out of the box with Employee Navigator at all. It's completely different to that. Yeah. All right. So in there, if we go and have a look at the agent, we can see that the agent does indeed have access to that tool. There it is. Okay, so it's a tool that's been added to that agent in the way that you can add any tool to any agent if you wish. And it's got a specific name, and we can click on it and we can have a look at it in a bit more detail here. So we're going to go and zoom in on the tool. There's a list of tools. We know what it's called. So let's go and put them in alphabetical order, go and have a look for it. There it is. And take a look behind the scenes because we want this to be as transparent as possible. And we can see it's got a description, and we can also see that it's got a specific process name. Okay, I'm just about to highlight that for you. Okay, which is actually in the configuration, that process name is the name of a process in Innovation Studio. That's the name of the process that's in Innovation Studio. And custom tools are Innovation Studio processes. Let's go and have a look for it. It's in this application. It can be in any application you like. I'm going to go and have a look in the processes, find the process, and I'll just pause it maybe here and let it load. And then take the palette away so I can have a slightly better look at it. And then I can enjoy this process. So the limitation on what the tool can do is a limitation of what processes you're able to create in Innovation Studio. So you may well want to do some training around Innovation Studio. You might want to learn how to create these processes. Maybe you've already seen Catalog, Digital Workplace Catalog, and you recognize this as being very similar to workflow because indeed it is. It's the same skill set. So, for example, if you wanted a tool that looked up data from CTM people or from the CMDB, as it's doing in this case, or from a custom form that you've got, or from any other data source, maybe reachable by a REST API, completely possible because you saw there that a custom tool is a reference to this process. You run this process with a certain set of inputs, which would be the user's answers, questions, and then you'll get the output out. So it can quite happily look for data in all sorts of different places. Okay, so custom tools are very, very much a thing. And you can add them either to existing agents, or you might want to add them to you might want to add a custom tool to an existing agent, or you might actually decide you want to make your own agent with its own little cocktail of tools which you like. Some which are provided by us, some which you're creating yourself. Tools are not all visible as IS processes, so the out-of-the-box tools that we have are not directly visible to you in Innovation Studio. Okay, so the out-of-the-box tools, although they are coded within our environment, they are not transparently visible in Innovation Studio. The custom tools that you create are visible in Innovation Studio, and that is where you create custom tools. Okay, to answer your question, Diego.
And on communities are already a number of these tools that you can download and test.
Yep.
And I encourage you to actually develop your own tools, your own agents, and share them on our communities, because then we help each other.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You'll learn so much from creating a very simple tool, or even taking a tool someone else has made and kind of reverse engineering it, which it's completely open here. Hugh's completely sharing all his code here. There's nothing secretive about this. He'll give you everything you need to build your agent and and the tool and the Innovation Studio process that points to it. So we are pretty much at question time, yeah, which is good because we're getting questions.
Yeah, we are. We've had actually, Kath's been very busy. It's quite nice
Yeah.
that he's been a little bit silent. It's normally me and him talking a lot. You've had a lot through, which is great because it means that people are interested in the content. Just a quick one before we go through the questions. Thank you to those that have filled in the poll. We've had quite a few answers. Do still fill that in if you've got time. You'll find that on the poll and quizzes section. So if you'd like to write a few of your answers, there is actually a question where we're asking if you would like a follow-up. That's really just, for example, if you need help with configuration of agents. I work with a customer success team, actually work in customer success, so we can help put you on with a contact. And we're also running lots of workshops that are coming up, which will start going out onto LinkedIn. So all these agents we've discussed about, they're starting to happen. Product management, i.e. Kath that's here today and his wider product management team. If there's anything in general, we'd like to connect you together. Don't wait just for the webinars. And then obviously from an education standpoint, you've got Naji and we've got a wider team we work with if there's any questions. And I know once we send all this content out today, we will be sharing some examples of education and training that might be useful to help you get on your way. So just a bit of a plug there. And one other final one is, if you are going to be going to the road shows, not sure where everyone's listed, but I did see quite a few people from America and also Europe. We've still got some road shows coming up. Next week is going to be the one in Riyadh, and then we have a road show in New York, which is on the 6th of November. The day before is going to be a user group, so do sign up if you haven't already. Don't worry about taking the links. I will share that with the thank you email. And then we also have Madrid, which is going to be on the 18th. And then we have Frankfurt, which is on the 20th. And Naji will also be there. So if you're in those locations, there's a lot of people going to be there, including the wider team for Naji and the wider team for CAF. So that's the main stuff I wanted to cover. So back over to the questions. Kath, I know your fingers are probably hurting right now. Do you want to take the first question from Diego? You started to reply back, and I'm going to go and start unmuting people so they can speak to us as well. So you started to write on Diego's one.
Okay, so one was about how do you create tools or tools processes. Do you want to did you get the answer you needed? I think if you want, you can ask the question straight here if you didn't get the answer you expected. And Naji, there was one question in the beginning.
Yeah.
Could you just show how you create a search view and attach a skill to a search view and make it a studio page? Because that was a question from someone. Do you have the demo system?
Yeah, no, I don't have it on the demo system, but yeah, you can. We teach it, in fact, in the training course. So there's a 3-day training course that we do on HelixGPT, and one of the use cases we do in there is having a studio pages search view and then embedding that in there. What can I show? I can show something of that. So let me show you how you can do it in Innovation Studio, which might be also interesting, where we can do it in. So in Innovation Studio, if we've got a view, it doesn't really matter where it is. Let's go to this one very quickly. Let me just share my view here. And we could, for example, on a dashboard or anywhere else. So I do have this. We do have the ability to bring in to this a HelixGPT chat item, which I can drop, let's say, at the top or at the side here or something like that, where I can now say, this is the skill I want it to use, and I get a choice of skills. So if you want to make a custom Innovation Studio view, that can also point to any one of your skills. Skills are very, very accessible. So we can get to them from out the box from in our settings here. So we can go to our configuration settings for digital workplace and specify exactly how we get to them on chat or on search, and you can see it's just simply a selector. Yep, we can do it through Innovation Studio. We could interrogate the skill through Teams, and we can also do it on a studio page in a similar way to what was happening in Innovation Studio.
Maybe if you go back to the configuration page, I can guide you what
let's see what I've got on here. Oh,
if you click Studio, click Studio.
Yeah, we've got a whole load of weird pages on here that we've been building for.
Oh, that you might not want to show, but if you click search views on the right, I think.
Yeah, true. We could do one that's in there already. Yeah,
search views.
Yeah, we've got a few. Well, look, I've got one myself actually. I think it's in a relatively okay state, so I can maybe show you in there. So yeah, I mean, here we're directly pointing right at a skill. Yeah. Okay. This is from one of our training environments.
This page you can then refer to from a studio page, or from a button on the studio page, or from a button on any web page, and they will open up a HelixGPT chat page for you.
Yep. So there's a lot of ways to get to a skill. There's lots of different ways you can get to a skill. Yeah. They're kind of freely available. And like I say, we teach this. This is on a course I'm teaching right now, where we will do this. So if you're really interested in this, there's a 3-day instructor-led course on there. Let's go back to some other questions, though. I think we've done that one.
What are sub-agents? So in 25.4, we have released, we did last week actually, it's released now. So I am going to have a webinar next week where we're going to go through 25.4. And now what Naji has been talking about is Employee Navigator being a single agent with a number of tools. Next generation, which we start with 25.4, you're going to have a supervisor agent, and the supervisor agent can have sub-agents. And the reason we are doing that is if you see that the instructions to the agent are pretty long, and like any human, you can only handle enough for you, and then you need to have a team that you can delegate to. So in the same way, the supervisor agent in 25.4 has got the tools, but it has got sub-agents that are doing things for you. And we have one sub-agent that is handling raising requests. We didn't look at that today, how that works, but that we can look at on Thursday next week, I think it is. And it has another agent that is handing over to live chat. So instead of having all those instructions in the Employee Navigator agent, we have a supervisor, and it can select to use a tool, but it can also select to delegate to another agent. And that is what we mean when we say supervisor agent. Does that answer your question, hopefully? The next one is considering multi-tenant, how we would segment LLMs for each tenant. And for DWP perspective, is it possible using Studio, but for smart IT, how we could accomplish that? I don't fully understand the question. Do you want to explain a little bit more, Diego?
Yeah, hi, hello, good day.
Hey.
For example, we have multi-tenant and we have several supergroups that attend a different tenant, right? Company A, company B. But company A wants to enable Smart IT as HelixGPT or these capabilities, but the tenant B not yet want that to be enabled. So we want to set an LLM for company A so they could use those capabilities, but company B will not be using that.
Okay.
So,
So that's not a problem. That's not a problem. You know, in tenant A, you configure Employee Navigator, no problem, and you set up HelixGPT with an LLM. So when user A is chatting with HelixGPT, they have the full capability from their tenant, so to say. And you can configure it in the search bar or in the side panel, wherever you like. And it's going to be unique for that tenant. The other tenants, you do nothing, and they don't get any access to Employee Navigator, right? So these configurations are unique per tenant.
But for the Smart IT perspective, for the support groups using the GPT capability.
That is a different thing. So what do you want to do on Smart IT is that some support group use it, some support groups can't use it. That's a different use case, right?
Yeah, that's the question
Yeah,
for that use case.
I don't think we support that. I've heard that question before, but the idea is kind of, if you are a support staff, do you mean you have the customers in your Smart IT in different tenants as well? So some people have access to parts of Smart IT, and some users have access to another part of Smart IT. That's not normal, is it? I don't think we are doing that normally. Are you doing that?
I mean, some support groups resolve tickets from company A and the other ones for company B. So company A one.
But remember, Employee Navigator is for end users only. The agents don't see it unless they log into DWP.
That's why I'm not talking about Employee Navigator at all.
In Smart IT, you have a huge team that is supporting both customer A and customer B, right? It's the same guy. One day he's supporting customer A, one day he's supporting customer B, right? So for him, he has got his own agents, which is not Employee Navigator. It's an agent for the support staff, so they can get summary resolutions, they can get answers to questions, and they can do things which are for them, but the end user doesn't know because it's an agent for the support staff. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I for the purpose of costing, the company A want to use they supporting use the capability, and for company B support it's not ready for using an LLM. So I want to discriminate the support groups that will use this capability to help.
Yeah, I don't believe that is configurable. Let me have a look in a bit more detail. It is certainly possible to switch the feature on and off, but that, as far as I know, is a global on and off, and not company specific. So as far as I know, or even more detailed from your support group. Yeah.
Okay. That I want to be sure about that.
That's where we are at the moment.
Is somebody trying to say something more?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's try to finish the other questions. Radhika, do you want to ask them interactively?
Ale jak najbardziej. Bardzo Pani dziękuję. Już.
I can read the questions if you want. When knowledge tool vector DB returns results, any threshold parameters preferences involved here? Is it possible for us to customize? Yes. When you there are configuration parameters behind the scene. I think Naji will show you in his training, 3-day training, how to do that. But you can configure thresholds. For example, how many documents come back, how equal they have to be considered. You saw you had a ranking thing there. You can also tailor the prompt. So there is a lot of configurations behind the scene, but we didn't intend to train on that here in this short training.
Yes, all configurable. Yeah.
Can the instructions be modified by us for out-of-the-box agents, or do we have to create custom for that? You can copy the ones we ship, and you can use them. You can make as many copies as you like. You can add other tools to the out-of-the-box agent that you get. That I've heard multiple people doing that, and they get new functionality just by adding a tool. and it's very flexible. So yes, you can reuse what we have.
Yeah, and also can instructions be modified? So yeah, you create a copy and you do that. With Smart IT, custom skills or agents. So in Smart IT, you would like to add maybe somewhere, either in an incident form or on some other part of the screen, a link. Yes, that is doable. In the sense that a button can launch any skill, and that can happen from the console. So with customization, yes, it is possible to launch your custom skill from within ITSM. Yeah.
And you can build new skills and reference them.
Yeah.
And even in the workflow, if you create the process in either DWP or in Innovation Suite using the process tool, there is a step which is calling the agent. So within the workflow, you can do things. You can ask an agent to do things for you. So it's very flexible and extendable, I would say. So I think we are over time, so I think we need to stop here. But thanks a lot, everybody, for today. I hope it was interesting, and we'll come back with a new session. I think Naji will come back with a training on the supervisor agent, sub-agent approach in 25/4 in a month or whatever.
Definitely. And I was going to say, any questions that haven't been answered, we will get them answered for you. We'll put a blog post out. We'll send in the thank you email a survey, the Helix training that we've just discussed. And if you do have any other content or you would like us to focus on something, we'll have one more session, which will be, actually two, November and possibly December. We'll run some more sessions and then we will start and reconvene again next year. So thank you everyone for joining. Naji, thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Kath. And we'll get the content out to you very soon.